Hey everyone, I'm Devika and welcome to a new episode on our channel, and today we are talking about content writing interview questions. So yes, today's episode is going to be very beneficial to all the aspiring writers, to the people who are looking out for content writing jobs and you plan to attend the interview very soon. Today's episode is going to give you these the most commonly asked interview questions when you're going for a content writer's job, and I shall also provide you the most favorable answers to these questions to get you one step closer to your dream job. So stay tuned and keep watching. So as I mentioned in a couple of my previous videos, that content writing is a profession that is gaining ample popularity, and with the popularity the competition related to it is also on a rise. Therefore it is essential that you be able to ace the interview so that you get that dream job. So today we shall look at these questions, or the top interview questions that you might face when heading for a content writing position, and I'll give you some of these favorable answers as well. So let's get started and look at some of these questions. So the first question that you're most likely to face when you enter the interview room and you settle down is going to be introduce yourself. So let's not get into that. That's a very common question, and I would want to focus on content writing related questions. So the next obvious question here is what skills are required by a content writer? Okay, so why do you think the person interviewing you is asking you this question? Now, every employer wants the person whom he or she is hiring to be completely aware of the tasks or roles or responsibilities that is to be handled by the person being hired. So that's the reason behind asking this question. So if you're able to answer appropriately, the person interviewing you would be sure that you are the right person for this role. Now, when somebody asks you the skills required by a content writer, what should you answer? Now, try to frame your answer something like, a few pointers that I would tell you here is the first skill that a content writer requires is to know the reader, or to know the target audience. So a person who just barely starts writing right away might not turn out to be a good content writer. You should be able to write something that goes out and gives out the perfect message to the target audience. So the first skill required by a content writer is to know the reader. The next thing is to be able to know what you have to communicate. So just barely writing again won't work. You would need to know what you need to write. You would need to, ask questions to the clients or whoever is giving you that topic, and you would need to ask them as to what is the intention or the message behind creating that content. Okay, and the third thing would be something like being able to create a unique content. Now you have several websites, so just copying things from various websites and making it a content of yours will not work. It will only land you into a lot of trouble. So content needs to be unique. So content writers, the main skill here needs to be of being able to create unique content. Okay, and the next one would be something like be able to summarize. Now when you are brainstorming, okay, you will come across several ideas that has to be communicated to the target audience. Now most of the time the content that is to be written is limited, so you can just write 500 or 1000 words. So how do you put in such a big idea on paper that way? So that's where your skill of being able to summarize it in the right set of words, sentences, so that the message is communicated without creating pages of the same content. And the last skill, or the last preferable skill that a content writer needs to have is to be patient with research. Now every content that you create has a lot of research involved, so being patient with the research process is very crucial to create a very good write-up. So these can serve as a very good answer to the question of what skills are required by a content writer. The next question that you're most likely to face is wherein the person interviewing you asks what are the most primary, or what are the integral parts of a good content. So the person interviewing you wants to know whether you can write a good content or not. So if you know what should go into making a good content, you will definitely make a good content creator. So the answer to this can be again divided into say 4 points. So first thing is engagement. a good content will have a lot of engagement. So you should be able to, or a writer should be able to create paragraphs, sections in such a way that it is engaging and holds the attention of the reader. So this is the first point. Next is something, maybe utility, as in the impact of your write-up on the audience. So that is also very important. So unless you take the needs of the audience into consideration, you wouldn't be able to come up with a good content. And the next point can be, something like how well you are able to follow the no plagiarism rule. So we all know that plagiarism is a serious crime. It can get you into trouble, and not just you. If you're working for a company, then going into this plagiarism can be a real hindrance to the name of the company. And the last thing is being able to rely on credible sources. Now, when you cite something in your paper or in your content, so you're stating something. So from where did you get that information holds a lot of importance. So you would, as a content writer, would need to be able to differentiate between credible sources and the ones that are not. So credible sources would, something be like journal papers. Okay, so those are credible sources, but you cannot rely on information provided in maybe somebody's personal blog. So that wouldn't be credible. Okay, so that could be wrong, that could might not be that authentic or legal or ethical. So you always need to use credible sources to seek information that you can put in your content. The next question that you might face is something like, what do you do to make your content or your write-up more SEO friendly? So we all know SEO stands for search engine optimization. Now, just writing a content for a website or a company will not be that fruitful unless you have proper SEO put into it. So with SEO, and when you're like face this kind of a question, your approach should be giving equal importance to the content that you have written and also to the SEO that goes behind it. So you're the person interviewing, you would be impressed if you give SEO also equal importance. So that would include you telling them how you make use of SEO practices, or what kind of approach you use to insert the right keywords in the right amount, whether you make use of hyperlinks. So tell them what you do to make your content SEO friendly, and that would be the appropriate answer for this particular question. The next question would be something like, what do you need to know before you start working on a project? So by project, I mean the topic that you need to write on, or the assignment in general. So if you are one of those who just answers saying, I just start writing, then there is a high possibility that you might not be hired, because there's a process that needs to be followed before you begin writing, and that involves asking a lot of questions, doing a lot of research. So when you're answering this kind of a question, don't just tell that I start writing. Tell them that you ask a lot of questions, you want to know the target audience, you want to do a lot of research, you want to know the goal of the project, and only after you get answers to these, you would start writing. So answering this way would increase the chances of you being hired. So the next possible question is, how do you proofread a piece of work? Now, writers can make mistakes. Okay, we all do mistakes, and when somebody is writing and you're in that flow of writing, there's a high chance that you might end up making mistakes. That could be any spelling error or a grammatical mistake. It's the possibility is high, and there's nothing wrong about it. But a good writer is somebody who would be able to catch the error, who would be able to rectify it and give a copy that is clean. Okay, so when you answer this kind of a question, you need to tell them that you're fine with making errors, but you also have the ability to catch your errors. And for that, you have this strategy of proofreading your work. So once a writer finishes writing, he or she should always proofread the work. And by proofreading, I mean checking it thoroughly for grammar, readability, spelling, and all of these. There are several proofreading tools, which I'm sure if you're going into the writing career, you would be aware of, or even if you're hired by the company, they might provide you these proofreading tools. But it's quite essential that every piece of content goes through this proofreading process so that you produce a clean and good content. Last question that I'm going to discuss today is something like, how do you incorporate feedback and edits to your write-up? Now this question is not exactly about what you do, what kind of process you follow to do it, but this question is, the aim of the question is to understand what kind of a person is being hired. So if you have to impress your employer or the prospective employer, you need to handle this question very you need to tell them in a subtle manner that although you know how to defend your choices, but then you're open to constructive criticism or feedback. So it is very important with any write-up. Okay, so we look at it from a that single perspective, but when it goes out to the client, they might have a different approach and they might have suggestions or edits that they want to be incorporated. So if you're a writer who you're very adamant about not doing it, then there is a chance that you wouldn't be hired. So say if you have got a feedback and you have an opinion, you are at the liberty to share it and put it across to them and tell them why you thought that is correct. But in spite of that, if the client or your employer is adamant about you making certain changes, you should be able to do it and you should do it. Okay, so that's also one of the factors that people want to work with writers who are flexible, and this question needs to be handled in a very delicate manner. So when you're answering such questions, tell them that you're open to criticism or these kind of feedbacks, and you would ensure that you will incorporate it in your write-up. This was about it. These were the questions that I wanted to discuss, and these were the primary questions. But also maybe once you're hired, okay, during the HR round, there's a possibility that you can face a question something like how many words you can write per day. Now don't be overwhelmed with this question and don't just randomly say a number. Say every person differs, and if you're a fresher and getting into this writing career, there's a high chance that you'll be slow at it. So initially you might just end up writing 1,000 words daily, but then eventually as you grow and you learn the process of writing, how the research works and all of that, you would slowly be on the rising curve and you would be able to produce more number of words. So when you're getting onto the job, don't commit something that you cannot do. So if you can just produce 1,000 words per day, tell them that, okay, and be clear about it and tell them that you're ready to learn and put in more effort, and maybe eventually you will produce more words daily, but be really clear about it right from the start, because just telling them a rough figure of say I can do 3,000 4,000 words daily, and then when you go on board and you're not able to do it, it will only get you into trouble. So be very clear with this kind of a question and agreement, and get them into confidence. Let them believe you that you would put in that hard work, but don't commit something that you wouldn't be able to do. Shall wrap up today's video here, but before that, there's a pending thing that I would want to share, and that is about answering the riddle that was asked in one of our previous videos. So if you haven't watched that, I would highly recommend you all to go and watch the Riddles to Improve English video. That was quite an entertaining one, and I know most of you all loved it. So there was a riddle asked at the end of it, and I wanted all of you all to comment, and you all did, and I got the right answers from most of you all. And the question was something like, what is that thing that can get broken without being held? And I also told you all that it's something connected to the emotional perspective, and yes, most of you all got it right. And the actual answer, or the answer on available on the source from where I got this riddle, was promise. So the answer to this was promise. So promise is something that can be broken without being held. But then I got a few more answers from all of you all, answers like heart, answers like trust, and I feel those are correct as well, and those are applicable. So there can be these riddles that have more than one answer, and it depends on how you analyze and look at it. So these were the correct answers, and thank you for commenting and participating in that particular activity. And thank you for watching today's video. If you liked it, don't forget to hit the thumbs up and leave your comments about today's video, and if there are any other particular kind of videos that you want me to come up, I would surely consider those. And I shall be up with another interesting video very soon. Then till then, thank you for watching today's video. Take care of yourselves, and bye bye.